All set?
All set. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Government Operations Committee, Thursday, August 7th, 2025. And we are starting just a few minutes late because we had a wonderful team spirit moment where our committee and friends and visitors we're all wearing teal blue today, and we had a group photo, which we will somehow get out to the whole world. Thank you all for doing that with me. It's very fun. Do we have any changes to the agenda? I don't think so. Public comment? You're the only public. All right, no public comment. Let's take the minutes of July 3rd. Can somebody move those? Rich moves, Greg seconds. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes? Unanimous, thank you. We are delighted today to have our old friend and former legislator, Susan Currie, here. She's been working at the public library for the past several months and is here to give us some updates and give us a chance to ask some questions. So thank you for being here, Susan. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I almost raised my hand to vote. Habit. Thank you for allowing me to be in the photo, the group photo. So yes, I've been at the library for 4 months and some days, and my appointment is for 6 months. So a lot has been happening. A lot of really good things have been happening, and I have a long report. I will try not to go on too long, but I love the library. It's a fantastic library, and I love talking about it. So we have been working really closely, first of all, with Finger Lakes Library System to reconnect with them and to get back onto procedures that are required of central libraries. We've had a lot of meetings with them. In fact, we had 3 training sessions with them for collection development, and I regularly attend the Finger Lakes Library System Directors Meeting, which is required. Also, one of the things is that we're the central library for 33 libraries in 5 counties, and that requires that the central library have some additional responsibilities, such as many libraries don't have an MLS librarian at night. We do at TCPO, so that librarian serves as the librarian for reference questions that other libraries might have where they don't have someone on duty, and she works until 8 p.m. We've also been working a lot on programming. There's always been a really robust children's programming there, and youth services. They're amazing. Their youth services programs are incredible and heavily attended. But we've been working on more programming for adults. We had an incredible reading of the Constitution out in front of the library, which was really well covered on local news channels. And we have, I think a really interesting one is the CARS book club, where they choose a book. And I love there's a photo of them, and of course nobody's faces can be seen because recovery. So they're all facing art, and they had read a book about art. So the photo of them is from the back, looking at the art, holding the book up like this. It was a great photo. We've also increased the online presence with lots more live streaming and an emphasis on digital services so that people who can't actually make it to the building can access library services. So we've had more than 7,000 views on YouTube year to date, and that includes live stream events for authors like the Pulitzer Prize winner Jonathan Eig, and more recently Maya Zalovitz, as well as during Gay Pride Month, we had a huge program, and they also had a really interesting thing. It was a gender-affirming closet for adults, which was one of the most heavily attended things. We also have really increased collaborations with organizations, and that includes GIAC, County Office of the Aging, Food Net Meals on Wheels, RACR, the Ithaca City School District, Titus Towers, TC3, Head Start, Kendall, Lifelong, McGraw House, many more, History Center, the Learning Web. And we're going to be partnering with Family and Children's Services. We'll be available for story times during some of their hours. The circulation desk, which was a really hot topic, last year. It reopened in July 2025, and we've had incredibly positive response to that. People are very happy about that. But there's also a really incredible thing at the Library of Things. Let's say if you need a specific kind of frying pan, you can come and check it out from the library. The newest thing to that is a charging locker, which is about yay tall from here. And let's say you come to the library and you forgot your phone charger. You can, it has a secure lock that you add you make the code that you put in, and you can charge your phone or your laptop. So let's see what else. We have 7 new trustees. Thank you to the committee who interviewed them and selected them. We have 2 more vacancies, so we're forming a board nominating committee, and at the end of this year, there will be more vacancies, so that nominating committee will continue. So the volunteer program was something that we heard about. It's changed. It's still a volunteer program. It's called Program Partners, and Program Partners are they volunteer with a specific department and get their training in that department. So it might be things like shelf reading, straightening the collection, helping with children's programming. My personal favorite is that we have someone who partners with us on a program called Sit, Stay, Read, which is where children they read to dogs. So we have, the SPCA brings the dogs, they're therapy dogs, and children can read to them, and that's very good for reluctant readers because it builds confidence. We also partnered with Challenge, who reached out because they had they asked us to host an intern who's working on an MLS, and that's working out very well. So she's working in youth services and in adult services and with other departments. So there's been a lot of increased usage in the library, more people in the library, more programming and attendance. We have expanded hours for the makerspace, and if you would like a tour of the makerspace, it's one of the best things in the world. Community members are incredibly creative and using the equipment, and one of the best examples is for a school science project, someone created a prosthetic hand that could be operated so that someone who, they had a whole mechanism for how it could be operated. That was really cool. Someone had old films, home school, like their, like the reel-to-reel films that you had of your
VHS?
Not even VHS. I mean reel-to-reel. That you used to have, and you'd see your home movies, and they lost part of the reel, so they came in and used the 3D printer to create the space. So it's interesting that new technology is being used to support old technology. A lot of things in the makerspace. So that's just some of the highlights. But on a daily basis, I like to walk around, talk to people. Patrons are very engaged. The other thing they have is a big puzzle table, and there's a puzzle that's finished about every other day. So they can't keep the puzzles out long enough, and people just do them like that. But we do have some challenges. Restoring positions. So I'll give you some numbers. In 2020, there were 42.61 FTE. In 2025, there are 35.6. So we do need some more positions to help order, process, and get the collections on the shelves. We also
Sorry, excuse me. Could you just say that number one more time, those 2 numbers?
Yeah. In 2020, it was 42.61 FTE. Right now, it's 35.6.
Thank you.
And we also have to look at implementing the living wage, which would have a huge impact. It affects roughly 16 positions. On the lowest ring, the pages, which are the staff who shelve, the clerks who also help at the desk and with programming. We also don't know the impact of tariffs. Everybody is looking at that, and we don't know how that will impact purchasing. And libraries do a lot of purchasing, not just all the equipment and materials for programming, but also the collection itself. So we don't know how that will impact us. We're also having, in the midst of a search for a new director. And we want to set the new director up for success. We will ensure that there is a better onboarding process for the new director. And the board is very focused on that and feels that that would be a key element of helping the new director to succeed. One of the other challenges is public expectations. The library has been under a microscope for quite a while, and for staff that can make everything feel like a challenge. But we want to be what the community wants us to be. The other thing is the facility. We hear very often about the outside of the facility. We receive a lot of questions about it. But I want to add that we're deeply appreciative of facilities because they have a plan for renewal of the outside of the library. And Arel walked around the building with me and told me about it. I know that they are being pulled in many different directions. I also want to give a shout out to Arel and Dana Dexter and Mike Seagard, the county electrician. When we were looking to restore the circulation desk, they went above and beyond. So thank you for that. But to end on a positive note, I will say one of the things people tend to think of libraries as books and programs, but a library is one of the most efficient and amazing cooperative purchasing agreements that a community can have, because we purchase something and leverage it for thousands of people. So an example, there is a program that's held at the library every year, a volunteer income tax preparation services that's held at the library. And that was held this year. It's available to low-income residents of Tompkins and Cortland counties. It's completely free. There's a income threshold for that. And there are volunteer tax preparers. So the total number of families served for that were 666, which always, that number gets a little laughed, like 666. The total refunds to people was $924,031. The total number of people served, 908. And the total tax returns filed, 1,338. But the total community impact, including the tax preparation fees saved, is $1,157,131. So one of the things that we are looking to do is have a library value calculator where if you check out a book, you get a receipt that tells you how much you saved by checking out a book. And with the library value calculator, we would be able to plug in our total use of rooms, computers, books, movies, whatever, and get an incredible amount of savings to the community. So every penny that the library receives is leveraged to serve actually 33 libraries in 5 counties, and that's over 310,000 people since we're the central library. So we're having an ice cream celebration on August 23rd. You're all invited. Hope that you'll come. And I don't know if you have any questions for me. This is a short summary. There's much more that I could tell you, but I ran this by the staff and they told me not to overwhelm you.
That was great. That was all great updates, and you answered some of the questions that I had. What kind of ice cream on August 23rd?
I think it's going to be a variety. I hope.
Sounds
like chocolate for me, but
sounds enticing.
I'm sure there'll be chocolate and vanilla.
Okay, questions or comments? Mike?
Nice report, Susan.
Thank you.
Earlier in the year, before you were there, I know there was some friction with Finger Lakes Library System. I wonder how things are going now.
They are going very, very well. We've had a lot of meetings with them. They came down and did 3 different training sessions for the librarians in terms of selection for the collection. And the director and I used to work together, and so we have a really good connection there. There's been that connection has been restored.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Rich?
And one of the board members for the TCPL is now on the Finger Lakes Library System Board.
It's going to be. Liz Chabot, who's currently the treasurer for the Board of Trustees, will be on the Finger Lakes Library System Board. Yeah. The Central Library really should have someone on that board. And I think
TCPL,
yeah. They hadn't had for a while, so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that things seem to be proceeding in the right way. And I would just add to all the information you provided, I attended a search committee meeting yesterday, and it's a good representative group We
Great.
have somebody from the Finger Lakes Library System, from the Friends of the Library, from the foundation, from staff. Susan is on it, and the board is represented, and I'm on as the liaison to the legislature. We have good candidates, and I was impressed with the number of people who applied for the position, and we're proceeding. So that's underway. I know there's a hard date. I think Susan is planning to be in Antarctica on October 1st. So.
You are?
Yes. No, not really. But I'm going to be retired.
She will not be where she is right now.
Yeah,
So we need to get our work done.
Yeah.
I was curious, I thought that the work on the exterior of the building was going to be done maybe the end of August, September. Do we have a date when they're going to get there? I know as you said, they're getting pulled in other directions.
Really are. And whenever there's something, they show right up. They come, I will say, every time I've been the director, and this is my third time, they have been phenomenal. They show up. At first they said mid to late summer, but then I think with a lot of the office moves, I think it might be later in the year. Okay. So not exactly sure when.
Yeah. It's ready for some work on the exterior.
We hear about it a lot.
Yeah.
And we tell them facilities they're planning. They're just being pulled in many different directions.
Yeah, great. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Susan, and good to see you again. I had a nice tour from Susan the other day. I was at a conference at the conference center and had a few minutes to burn and popped in the library unexpected and got a really robust tour. And it was neat to see a lot of these spaces and meet some of the staff and see all the different activated spaces, from the kid space, the teen space, the maker space. So it's always, I feel like every library conversation I've had as a legislator, I always learn something new that the library's doing. I personally love this tax prep program. I think it's incredible. It sounds like from the first report we got several years ago to now, it's really a robust program. And I think those are the type of things that low-income folks may sometimes have a barrier to access, and then it just puts people further behind because they may not know how to navigate, and then it just piles up and compounds. So the fact that we were able to help so many individuals and so many families is remarkable. I love your idea of a impact calculator and trying to really track what that means for the community and the dollars that we spend. As it relates to the living wage, I know that this is a conversation that a lot of organizations are having right now because of the significant increase that we saw from the previous year. I'm hoping that your board is having this conversation, and if not, if they could, before we have a budget conversation with you, to just understand their position on things, their understanding. Does it necessarily have to be a jump for the living wage? Are there other benefit adjustments that can be made? Are there other things that can be done? What's the holistic approach to just the sort of general compensation value for individuals? I hope that that's something that we can hear more about and understand the impact on, and see if there's ways to either get there or other things that we could do if we're not able just to get there just yet, that could be supportive of individuals and making it more affordable and livable for them to work and live in Tompkins County.
The library has always been a certified living wage place of employment, so I would like to see it get back to that. This is going to be an agenda item on the next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of the board.
Great, thank you.
So, we're looking at that. I just wanted to say one other program that the county historian, Carol Kamen, has organized us all into a series of programs based on the Constitution, where the first program is about the Bill of Rights. There's a program on voting. There's a program on citizenship, program on immigration. And she and Stephen Yale Lair, who's a Cornell law professor, have been setting up speakers for each one of those, and I think that will be a very popular program series.
Yeah, cool, great. I was gonna just also bring up the budget and just ask what your process is, and I assume you'll be the one giving us a budget presentation?
It is an interesting thing. The Finance and Personnel Committee needs to, that's one of the things that we'll talk about is starting to look at the budget process. I will say that our business manager, who has been there a year, was offered a very nice position elsewhere, and she has decided to take it. So we will be without a finance manager, after August 19th, I think, a business manager. So, and that's a concern to me, like how we do that. But I have done budget presentations before, so I'm comfortable with that. If the budget presentation is after the end of September, if there's a new director, I volunteered to come and do that with the I think that would be a hard thing to do as a new director. I'd be willing to do that. So,
but I assume you have scheduled a meeting with Corsa and admin about budget?
We had our meeting on July 25th.
Great.
The board president, the board treasurer, our business manager, and I met.
Great.
Had a great meeting. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. And then the last thing I was just going to say thank you. Years ago, I've been on the COFA board, the Office for the Aging Board, Advisory Board for many years. And years ago, we had a representative from the library who would come to those meetings and just share. But then that didn't happen for a couple of years, and just this past month someone came and
we started that again.
Yeah, it was great because the library is something that all people use and older folks use as well, so it's good to have that person back.
Yes, I think that's really important. And we also partner with Lifelong and Kendall, you name it, we partner with them.
Excellent. Well, unless there's more questions, Rich.
Yeah, just a difficult topic. We are heading towards what looks like a very difficult budget year. But I do note that last year, the library got some special treatment, and not in a very positive way, in our budget process. I think that there's an argument to be made that we need to be very cognizant of the library's needs this year because of what we did last year.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have a lot of conversation about that.
Yes, there was across the board 5% cut. There was an additional $20,000, and the library paid for its audit, all of which was a significant hit on the budget.
Yeah, definitely important conversations.
Thank you, Rich, thank you for bringing that up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's lovely to see you. We miss having you here on our committee, though.
I miss it, too, and I thank you so much for all the work that you do. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I know you're going to talk about assessment.
We're going to talk about assessment. You're welcome to stay.
Hear about, so I have to get back. But thank you very much for the invitation, and I appreciate all the work that you do. And I know personally how hard you work, so thank you very much.
Great. Well, hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, come to the library.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on to assessment. And I think Jay Franklin is here with a couple of resolutions and an update. Should we start with the resolutions or? Okay. So the first one is establishing county equalization rates, ID 13463. Can somebody move that? Rich moves. Greg seconds. Jay.
Yep, this is just our standard resolution we pass every year. New York State verifies our assessment roll and what level of assessment that I claim it to be as. So New York State has said our assessment roll is at 100%, and this will now allow us to apportion taxes between the towns and villages.
Questions, comments? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Second one is the adoption of 2025 assessment roll footings, and that is ID 13462. Rich moves. Greg seconds. Thank you.
This is my favorite resolution we do every year because this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to do it. So if anyone ever wanted to go back and look at our footings, it's in the same format. One thing I did notice, the actual footings are not attached to here, so I'll send that over to the legislature's office and you'll have it for the leg meeting.
Okay, great. Questions, Rich?
Yes, since this is, I think, my 10th and last time, I'm going to vote for this resolution. Where does the word footings come from? Is it because it's the base?
That's the old school way of adding up. So you, at the bottom of each page was your footings. So back before computers and you made an assessment change, you would make it on that roster and then update the total at the bottom of that page. So it's like the header and the footing. So this is all of the totals of the assessment roll.
Footings.
Huh.
I'm
I
glad
did
I
not
came
know that.
today.
Yeah,
There.
you learned something
I
new.
know. 10 years late.
10 years later,
I'm a wealth
you
of
finally...
knowledge after 29 years.
Other questions on the footings? Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And then you want to talk to us about some state legislation updates.
So this is always fun, trying to figure out how to bring these to you and then get it off to the towns, the schools, the villages for them to review as well. Because normally they like to know what you did first and then they'll do what they want to do. So along with this legislation, as you know, there's no rhyme or reason as to when bills that were passed by both houses get delivered to the governor. It's more as she takes a look at it, what she wants to address, and then they come. So that doesn't put us at a good position if she were to sign something at the end of December for us to get it enacted by March 1. So this is kind of that pre-step. I'm going to introduce the legislation to you, get your feeling if you want to see any of this coming back, and then at the next meeting, we can bring it back. If it's been signed into law, great, we'll bring it back with the local law, the resolution, the public hearing, all that fun stuff that takes forever to put together. But at least this kind of gives us a little leeway in that. So hopefully that's good. So I'll just briefly touch on a couple of this. This year, as part of the budget bill, cannabis is now an agricultural product. I only mention that just because when my staff goes out and inspects a new property and they come back smelling like DeWitt Park, there's an actual reason as to why they're actually doing that. So yeah, it was bad the first time they went out. There's a place in Newfield and it was like, oh my God, please open windows. This is horrible. But there's no action that's required on us. Kind of the big one that hasn't been delivered yet, and I've talked to here, is the modifications to the solar and wind calculator. The proposals that are made aren't necessarily going to make the calculator better or worse. When you're wrong, you're still wrong. So I don't think we actually need to do anything to support or non-support the changes that are out there. In my opinion, income tax credits are not income because they're only good to you if you have income and they defer what your taxes are. So they're typically not part of the real estate value, they're part of the business value. So that shouldn't be part of it. So it's, half dozen one, six of the other. For us, it's not really important because all of our solar projects go to the IDA for a pilot. So it's if you want to, I can put together what everyone else is passing, but we'll let you weigh in.
Thoughts? Rich?
Just a brief shout from the IDA that right now we are looking at a very large industrial level solar project in the towns of Dryden and Groton. And the valuation question is remarkably complex because, well, in part because of what New York State has done and not done. You're looking at the need to do a host community agreement with the towns of Groton and Dryden, but that comes out of the total amount of the pilot payment. And you're also converting to a payment based on kilowatt hours. But New York State has acted on this and they passed legislation that was then ruled to be unconstitutional, and they went back and changed it again. But this is mid-project, so we are scrambling around trying to figure out how we're going to appropriately, or at least in the ballpark, appropriately value this project for a pilot. It's not easy. But we're getting there, I think. I anticipate we will have a valuation and a proposed valuation for a vote coming up in the next month or two. But that's Yellow Barn. And there's supposedly another one perhaps coming down the line. So there are real local impacts to this formula, long term.
And I think you mean Groton and Lansing.
Oh, I said Dryden, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I moved it. I moved it. It's Dryden, or Groton and Lansing.
Yeah.
Groton and
That
Lansing.
sounds good. You can put it in Dryden.
Yeah.
Other thoughts, questions on that? Okay.
All right, now we're getting to more kind of the fun ones. There's two bills that passed that establishes a process for surrendering the certificate of title to a manufactured home and converting it to real property. This, I think, it could have major impacts here for affordability issues. Typically, when you buy a manufactured home, you have to go get a personal loan on that. You can't get your conventional mortgage. So this would allow a homeowner to relinquish the title to their mobile home rather than through the DMV, and they can now declare it real property and be eligible for a conventional mortgage. I talked to Chuck Geisler a lot with mobile homes. I know he's come before you, so I sent this off to him and said, hey, keep an eye out for this. This may be something that's good. And also it'll save us some phone calls because we get harassed by banks and property owners saying, please change it to a regular house so I can get conventional mortgage. And it is what it is. If it's a mobile home, manufactured home, that's unfortunately what we got to call it. But this is something good for affordability. We don't see that too often.
Mike and then Greg.
Totally intrigued by this one. Hadn't heard anything about it. Be interested to know what the process will be to do that. The difficulty we have, and I'm a real property attorney, is having lost titles and going down through estates and things like that. And then I also wonder about pre-1995 mobile homes. Is there going to be, can they also be, would they also under these laws be allowed to affix?
I believe so, and I know it talks about being on a permanent foundation with skirting around, removing the VIN. So I can take a look to see what the older ones would be. I think most of those would be pre-76 homes as well, that didn't have the VIN number on them as well.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
So yeah, there is a process that's defined in the law, and I don't think it's overly burdensome compared to the benefit that you get.
Well, I hope it gets signed.
Yeah. Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I also hear from Chuck quite a bit on the topic, and this is something I think might be interesting to HED if this does sign. If you could kind of keep track of that and maybe flag us for that committee to understand what that might be. I think it would be really helpful because I know that this can be a real, to your point, issue to affordability. So.
Yeah. Once I hear action on it, I'll let you know and get on your agenda.
Thank you.
Rich.
Yeah, like Mike, I'm intrigued by this. You would see access to far better loan products if it's real property. But right now, you would then, or by going through this, you'd raise the property value, wouldn't you?
No, different definitions of real property. So mortgage has one definition, and for assessment purposes, it's anything land, trees, bushes, and everything that's a fixture attached to it.
So you're recognizing the value of the mobile home already?
Correct. Yeah, as long as the mobile home is affixed, it's been in our assessing unit for 60 days, and it's not vacant and for sale within a manufactured home park, then is considered real property.
Would you be looking at these properties and saying, you know what, now that it's a piece of real property, unified, it's worth more?
I could see that happening because people would be able to afford more because of that mortgage. So yes, it would be something that we would track.
I would think marginal, but something.
Yeah, it's not like values are going to double You know, it's going to be incrementally more valuable is my guess, but.
Thanks.
All right, next one.
All right, next one. This one's similar to one of the exemptions we petitioned the state for. So this is an exemption for certain property transferred to low-income households. So part of this is you don't have to continue the affordability of this exemption through the next owner. Through our INHS, these are forever to be affordable. And this would apply, you could say, we're going to make these places 50% exempt or 40% exempt. With our legislation, we actually say this is how much you could sell your house for, and that's what your taxable value should be. So ours is a lot more precise than what this one is, so that's the reason why I would suggest sticking with us. But our process does have a little administrative work, working with INHS and Habitat to determine that maximum resale value, so I could see why the state would want to make it easier in other places. We're willing to do the work for the 60, 70 of these that we have.
Questions on this one? I don't see any.
All right, so now we have two veterans exemption ones. One, there was an exemption for veterans who have 100% service-connected disability in order to be fully exempt from property taxes. As it currently stands, only seriously disabled veterans are allotted the 100%. Those would be your paraplegics, who I think we've had 2 in my time who have been 100%. But this would create 100% exemption for disabled, or 100% exemption for 100% disabled veterans, and have not anything based upon their need. And I don't want my next comments to come out that I'm against veterans. They're the reason why I'm here, the reason why we're all here. But the real property tax, the tax of last resort, should be based, the exemption should be based upon need. That you have a low-income senior exemption. You have an ag land exemption to base it on the productivity. Many of these 100% disabled veterans also have full-time jobs. Just because they're 100% disabled does not mean they're 100% not being able to work. So where my issue is it's not based upon need, it's based upon who you are. And we should recognize our veterans, but we should recognize them through the income tax, through the federal and the state level, rather than, you know, it's fine what we do, but 100% exemption. And that's shifted to the low-income seniors as well. So we already know we're helping people in need, and now we're providing a benefit that adds to their tax burden. But that's my opinion. Obviously, I'm more than happy to administer what you all do.
Any thoughts or questions on that, Rich?
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I mean, we obviously want to support veterans, but this would be a substantial amount of exemption. We're talking just under $8 million that would be picked up by other taxpayers, including people with real need. So, yeah, our focus should be on need.
All right. I guess we're
The
good with
next
that.
veteran, so I'm not going to bring that one back unless I hear from somebody if something changes. So just to let you know, that was kind of the one, nor the other one. This one, I don't know how prevalent it would be. So this would provide an exemption for an active duty member who is serving in a combat zone as long as their home base is in New York State. That seems a lot. Typically now, when you get the veterans exemption, you're a veteran. You've been honorably discharged. They did just put in a provision last year for career service men or women in order to get an exemption, but this would allow an active duty in a combat zone whose base is in New York State. In my 29 years, I've had one active duty service member come in and ask about the exemption, but I think they would have qualified under the career service member. So this is one, I don't see the danger in passing it, but I also don't like passing legislation that never gets used.
Thoughts on this one? Anyone? Greg?
When you say base, do you mean like where they're deployed from, or like that they have a residence in New York State?
Where they're deployed from. So they would have to be like deployed from Fort Drum, but live in Tompkins County
Okay.
as an active member and own their house in Tompkins County.
And do we know what, I mean, I feel like everywhere qualifies as a combat zone these days.
No, not everything is still a war since 1990. We're still in a period of conflict, but there are still defined combat theaters that are out there.
That's what it is. We're still at war.
Yeah. We're still from the Persian Gulf conflict war. I don't remember what it was.
Right, thanks.
Rich?
So your example, you use Fort Drum. If it was a military base outside of New York State, but it was a New York resident who owned land here in Tompkins County, they would.
Correct.
Why would they do that? I mean, what does the New York military base have to do with anything?
I don't know. I read a lot of real property legislation, and I'm often confused as to why there's no consistency from one
passed?
section to the next. Correct.
Really? Okay. I don't think we should do this.
So you're saying you don't feel like it would have much of an impact? You're not sure that there would be that many people that would?
Correct. I did contact JR on this to say, hey, do you have any idea how many people this could possibly affect? And he didn't quite know of any that he could think of. So, you know, there's a lot of check boxes that you have to check.
Right.
You know, active member, living here, owning a house as well.
Right.
You know, I think just that would disqualify a lot of people who wouldn't qualify for the career service member one.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anybody say they really want to go for that, so I guess we can let that one go for now.
All right, and then the last one, which this allows an increase to the senior exemption limits. If you remember when we increased it last year, you vote on what the 50% exemption would be, and then the scale calculates it down to 45, 40, and so forth, down to 5%. This would now allow you to go up from that income scale. You would be able to allow a 55%, a 60%, and a 65% exemption. So with our income scales, we could go where is it? Income between 33.5 and 34.5 would get you a 65% exemption.
Questions, comments? Is that your suggestion?
No, my suggestion is to, hey, here's new legislation. Most places increased their senior exemption last year to what we did. The city of Ithaca went all the way up to the state maximum last year. So they provide a 50% exemption for income at $50,000 or less, down to $58,400 for a 5%. Not saying you have to follow or not. This is one of those, you know, my plan was to always bring it back every 2 years, changing a scale every year. There's a lot behind the scenes that takes to coordinate that when I got 10 towns and 2 villages that are also doing it, making sure the resolutions are actually legal and correct, updating the scale. But more than happy to do it every year if that's the wish of the committee.
Rich?
Yeah, given that we did this last year, I think we should see how it's really working before we consider further changes. We're also, as indicated earlier in the meeting, in a remarkably difficult budget season. The idea of adding exemptions that would then pass the tax responsibility on to other taxpayers, it's probably not the year to do that. So I don't have a lot of appetite to consider this.
Okay. Others? Mike?
Well, I would just say I think it's worth talking about again. I just wouldn't want to say no at this point.
Next time I come back, I'll just bring back when this does happen, here's all of the scales. And again, just so it's refreshed in your memory just to have. And if we don't do it this year, we'll do it next year.
I guess I'd have a question for my colleagues. I've had nobody ask me about this.
No, me either.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's so odd. I think real property tax legislation at New York State would be like the topic of every coffee shop in town, you know?
They're not going to mess with it, so.
Assessments are.
Not right now, yeah, until an article in the paper comes out. Okay. Other questions, comments, discussion, any other updates you want to give us?
No, we filed the final assessment roll, not too many. There's only 2 small claims assessment reviews. One's a Cornell ground lease issue that hopefully will get a little better decision than we got last year. It's hard for us to produce a confidential document if Cornell and the property owner doesn't share that with us. So hopefully we can get a better decision out of the hearing officer this year. But pretty slow year. Looking forward to our relocation, wherever that may be, so be fun.
All right. Other questions, Mike?
Speaking of your relocation, and not speaking of where you're going to be relocated to, but what kinds of things how disruptive will this be for the public when you're doing a move?
Well, it depends on where we move. If we move to a location where the public can drive to us, I think that would make it a lot easier. 86% of our homes in the county are outside of the city of Ithaca. Only 8% of the homes are in the flat part of the city of Ithaca. So at least 92% are driving to us. We have 4,800 seniors that we track in our database, about 1,300 ag parcels. If you talk to a senior or a farmer and ag worker, they do not want to come down to the city of Ithaca. So we're missing out on serving them because we have to serve them digitally.
Those figures are all new to me. Could we get like a paragraph with those sent to us? Mm-hmm. That would be useful.
Yep.
We have it written, we'll send it.
Okay.
Did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, what Mike asked, because that's great information. I was 8% of homes that single family or owner-occupied home. Is that what you mean by homes?
Just a single or any sort of home property. I can't really keep track if it's rented or not rented anymore. The star exemption would have been good, but that's just what's not going up the hill. So, Lynn Street to Cass Park down to Spencer Street.
Got it.
The 1,999 homes there. If you say the city of Ithaca is walkable, then you get up to about 14.5% of the homes in the county. And that's not to mention, there's about 25,000 homes, parcels within the county. So that's kind of that. So 22,000 are outside of the city of Ithaca. There's about 2,500 commercial properties, and they would much rather meet with me in a place that they could drive to me. Now I've gone to driving to meet with the commercial property owners instead of them coming to me.
That's really good information, I think, for many of our colleagues. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Are you counting apartments?
That's the part of the 2,300 commercial properties. There's about 1,100 apartment properties, so that's 4 units or more, or a 12-bedroom house in Collegetown.
So when you're saying 8%, that's houses?
Yeah, those are 1, 2, and 3 family houses.
Yeah, thanks.
So if you're looking at homeowners within there, that's going to be less of that when you take away the rental properties down there. Yep. The other thing, we did have a presentation by Abigail about the flood maps. We're looking at that to see what effect on value that may have. And, I hate saying things are interesting, but when you've been around a long time, you like something new and something you can analyze and look at. But I don't like saying it's interesting because it affects people's lives, and it's not just data, but as an appraiser, it's something for us to monitor, much like the plume area on South Hill when we had to look at the environmental concerns.
Greg.
Yeah, last question. It's an interesting topic, and it is interesting, but unfortunately it's impacting a lot of people. When you look at the impact of the floodplain and flood maps on assessed value, will you be looking mostly at market sales transactions? Will you be looking at the additional cost? What weighs in mostly to the formula? Because obviously there's some transactions taking place, but there's not, tons and tons of transactions taking place on a yearly basis, especially I think probably in this past year and the upcoming few years. So what are the indicators that you look at to try to drive value in a floodplain?
Yeah, so we will be looking at those transactions and looking at that change. I'm not anticipating a market value change, mainly because I heard back in the 80s when we developed the original firm maps, there wasn't a change. But what changed was who bought that property and maybe the use of the property. They went from being owner-occupied homes to being rentals, so that a mortgage over here could pay for that house and not have to have a mortgage within that flood zone. So there's a lot of things going in on it, and the more information we can have, which is why we brought Abigail over to say, hey, we need to learn about this more. When they were first introduced, I called up Sally Hoyt. Sally, you gotta help me out on this. So it's something we've been looking at for the last 2 years, but sales, listings, when we get into commercial properties, we're gonna need to see what those expenses are, because it's not, you could have two very similar properties next to each other with very differing flood zone expenses. And that makes appraising hard because we deal in generalities, we deal in normalities, and when things go off the wall, then we need the public's help too to come in and tell us, hey, this is something else you gotta look at. This is out of the ordinary.
So everybody knows Sally Hoyt's retired Tompkins insurance agent who really specialized in flood insurance and understanding that, just for the record.
Yeah, thank you.
The flood queen.
Yeah.
All right, Maury.
I was going to offer an anecdotal thought on that. It would be interesting to see what that data shows, but having been a refugee from a floodplain that was flooded in a hurricane, I think what the impact, being on the floodplain does not particularly impact value, at least in my anecdotal experience. It's proximity in time to a flood that impacts value. So, for example, on locations on Long Island that are in the floodplain, those since after Hurricane Sandy, there was a momentary drop in value, but those have now seen extraordinary appreciation where you'd wonder why people would build these palaces again, where they had stood before. I'm not sure being on the floodplain impacts value as much as when the most recent flood was.
All right, well, good discussion. It's always interesting when Jay is here, and we appreciate all your work, and thanks for being here today.
If you have any questions, give me a yell.
Great. I had put on the agenda the Board of Elections last week when we were a little bit unsure when we were going to talk about or how we were going to talk about the relocation and possibly Board of Elections moving up to Dutch Mill Road. I see that Alana Congdon is here, one of our commissioners at the Board of Elections, and I don't know we kind of set that topic aside, but I don't know, Alana, if you want to say anything about that or if you have other updates you want to share with us, if you are there.
I am here. And Elizabeth Lipsy is also here in place of Steve.
Gotcha, so, okay.
I sent an email to everybody yesterday that kind of laid out my concerns about the new proposed location and my feelings about the previous location. If there's any questions I can answer about that, I'm happy to do, or if you want to wait till another time, that's fine also.
All right, well, I'll see if the committee, excuse me, has any questions about that or other BOE questions. I'm not really seeing any. So we did get your email, appreciate that, and good to have your input. And I assume that folks have read that. I'm getting nods, okay. Anything else you want to share with us, Alana or Elizabeth?
Yeah, this is Elizabeth. I just wanted to add this to the whole discussion and consideration. I was listening with interest, as you might imagine, to a lot of the discussion in the past week. And one thing I heard repeated fairly frequently was a discussion of machine storage. And I did want to point out that the machines are certainly stored a portion of the year, but they are also actively worked on and tested and programmed and used for training a fairly significant amount of the time as well. And it is during those times that it's difficult for us to have them at a different location from the rest of the office. There is a programming system here that is actually comprised in three parts. It's programming the machines. It is scanning ballots so that when absentee ballots come in or affidavit ballots by voters who aren't able to vote on the machines for whatever reason come into our office, they're vetted, they're adjudicated as countable, or other ballots we may end up with can be scanned on another portion of this system that's in our office. And then there's also the tallying portion that gives us the final results for the elections. And the techs and the office staff both have to interact with that whole system on the leading up to the election, designing ballots, designing the election, and then scanning absentee ballots as they come in along the way in prescribed state law, prescribed dates, and then also election night generating the unofficial results and posting those to our website and posting them to the State Board of Elections and so on. So anyway, it becomes very difficult at times to have the testing and the results and auditing machines after an election and so on. To have all of this going on in two separate locations, it can increase the potential for mistakes to happen. It can increase the time involved and the expense also. So I just felt it was important. No one knows what goes on in someone else's job, unless we share that. And so I just thought that was an important thing for everybody to know.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And, it's not something that legislators are necessarily thinking about. So we appreciate and we hear that. I'll ask one more time if anybody else has questions or thoughts. I think it is still, things are evolving, but we did pass the resolution to purchase the Dutch Mill Road. I think it was agreed upon that by legislators that we would not move the BOE there, but it sounds like ultimately we need a permanent space for BOE with their machines. That it was going to be the ideal situation. So we definitely hear that. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you both for being here. Okay, so now we have a couple of policies. Very exciting. Love policies. And whoever wants to talk about them, come on up. First one is the resolution to update Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 07-11, Data Retention, ID 13469. Can somebody move that, please? Greg moves, Rich seconds. And Lauren and Kim are here from the ITS department. Thank you very much. Do you want to jump in and tell us about data retention?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I mean, hopefully y'all got a chance to read them, and we're here to answer questions, and I'm not sure, I think the general overview for these are pretty well explained in the policy statement, but happy to answer any questions on any of these. I don't know if we're going to do them one by one.
Yeah, we'll do one at a time. So questions, comments about data retention. And this is a new policy.
Correct.
Okay. This is a new policy. Rich.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This is certainly a policy people don't generally think about, but it actually provides some real legal protection to the county, so important to do. I was curious, where did you get this from somewhere? Did you borrow it? And how did you arrive at the time deadlines? And then I had one comment on page 19, but I'll ask my question first.
Want me to go or you?
Sure.
Sure. So about 1.5 to 2 years ago, Lauren and I engaged with a consultant. And the previous policies that we've come here to discuss, it was under that same purview. And these are just in the process of moving through the queue now. So I wasn't sure if you were quietly asking if we used AI to generate them, because that's...
I wasn't, but it seemed like this came from somewhere.
Right, yeah, so we worked closely with a consultant, and we also have a lot of contacts where we share information through the NYSGLITA, the listserv that we share with all the other IT directors in the county. So we certainly had some guidelines, and we also, for the times that you're required, we referenced, is it LGS1? Yeah, LGS1. For the standards for the timing, and we'll be working closely with the county clerk's office.
What's LGS1?
Local government.
It's the New York State local government record
So that's
retention.
where those times came from. Okay.
Yep.
Then my comment on page 19 in section C2 and 4, you seem to be using the passive tense. Who is going to be responsible for getting rid of, doing the review and disposing of files? Because at my company I used to be at, that was a big issue. Sure. Yeah, we wanted to do the document deletion, but is it department heads?
I was going to say, or we could invite Rachel up.
Well, I think there's two pieces. So there's a lot of data everywhere, right? So we actually have an application. It's called Varonis, and that we use that tool for a lot of things. We use it for cyber. If we were able to get ransomware, if we got ransomware, it would tell us, these files are being encrypted, send us messages. It also classifies all the data that we have. So it looks into all of the files and tells us where the sensitive data is, PII, CGIS data, HIPAA data, et cetera. So we are all teed up with that data, where it is, to work with the departments to go through it. It's going to be a fun exercise, and I can't wait. But,
does that application also age it?
I'm sorry, is it what?
Does it give you the age of the data?
It does, yeah. So it can say that this document is 15 years old, it hasn't been opened, and who has access to it too. So our first go around is to make sure that sensitive data isn't in areas where everybody can see it, or people that don't need to see that data. So we've been working with Lillian, our information security analyst, to start reviewing the data, start working with departments. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is Laserfiche, records retention, and then putting the policies on data destruction, which is Rachel's department.
And we actually already have some safeguards in place. We already have policies in place where data past a certain date is automatically shifted to a different directory within Laserfiche for review, and with the county clerk being the final authority before anything is destroyed.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah, that was my question too, and just that there's so much data, it seems like it could easily get forgotten to deal with this kind of thing, but it sounds like you have kind of a process and a plan.
Yeah, Varonis is a really good tool. We just recently upgraded to the newer version, which also looks at all of our SharePoint and OneDrive data, Office 365 data, so it can label and categorize that and do data classification, which was a huge step.
Other questions? Mike?
I remember back when we were talking about building a record storage building. Because, as I recall, we could never dispose of social service files. And I don't know whether that's still true or not, but, and I know we lease the storage up in Romulus, which I think is a great idea. Now that we do so much electronically, there must be things that we never want to go away, like deed records, for example, or other things like that, court records. How long are they good for, the way we're storing them, and what provision is made for 200 years from now?
Well, I mean, we can keep them forever. I mean, I could go through our backup routine as far as protecting the data. We also recently, I'll say recently, within the last year or so, we now do a cloud backup of all of our data, which I think is another conversation that we should have some time about what kind of data we have in the county, because we do have a lot of other municipality data in the county. So with Laserfish, we have a lot of the other towns, villages, City of Ithaca data that we're having to maintain, back up, and store. So to answer your question is the integrity. I mean, once a file is a file, we could potentially keep it forever.
So the electronic storage, whether it's in the cloud servers or wherever, you're saying will potentially could stay forever? I know when we talked about disks and things when we first started with computers, they would say, well, they might last 10 years or something like that.
I think you're talking about external media, so like tapes and thumb drives and CDs. We're kind of past that stage. Nobody uses tapes, CDs, and thumb drives for long-term storage anymore. We use hard drives and replication to things that are called network attached storage, or large hard drives, if you will, that replicate. So we replicate all the data between our data centers and then up to the cloud. So any one given file could be backed up 2 or 3 times.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that confidence.
I think once it's out in the system, it's there. I mean, it's protected, but it's...
But back in the day, when the medium was to export it on CDs,
right.
The CDs themselves were only good for, like you said, 10 years, or even thumb drives these days. I think they have a little longer shelf life, but that used to be, or tapes themselves, the tape would deteriorate after 10 years. So I think that's probably what you're referring to.
I've been going through my house and clearing out stuff. I literally have my laptop from 1997, and I have the little hard discs that you would slide in, and at that time we thought that was, permanent, but there's no way to get any information off that anymore, so I don't think we're at that place anymore. I think the cloud is kind of here to stay. So if anybody wants to see my old relics, I can show you.
I have a garage full of them.
Yeah, exactly.
10 gigabyte? 10 kilobytes.
Greg.
I just worry about what happens when the cloud goes.
It rains. Question, 2 questions. Other municipal data that we store, we charge, there's a fee for that?
Not at the moment.
Really?
Correct.
That's should be a topic of discussion at some point, and
That's
probably in
why-
this committee and then BCP, because cloud storage isn't free,
Correct.
even though it's up in the cloud somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think we should make that an agenda item,
Yeah, actually,
especially as budget seasons are.
Yeah, Corsa and I talked about it actually this morning, and we're working on a list of municipalities, how much data, and then putting a cost to that. So
Great.
we'll be bringing that forward.
Love to talk about that. This program that goes in and has access to, sounds like all of the county data.
Yes.
We don't need, I mean, I won't understand the specifics, but it seems like that's a vulnerable point because it does have access to everything. What are some reassurances or safeguards around, it being able to look, and how does that work, or what's
Sure.
the safety measures?
Yeah, it's an internal server that does have read access to the data to be able to classify it. But it's not configured that even if you were to get into that server, you couldn't delete anything from it. You couldn't.
It's isolated in some way?
It's isolated. It's
Okay.
two-factor, so on and so forth.
Great, okay.
Did you want to say something more?
I was just going to ask, but I don't want to use up committee time too much. Is that system searchable?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I had a question. No expectation of privacy. Anybody using county systems obviously should not be using it for personal use, and anything you send can be foiled, can be looked at. The county can look at people's computers, all that. I will say, though, that sometimes legislators get communications from administration or the county attorney that we're saying is confidential. I mean, how confidential is that actually? And does that apply, or how does that apply to no expectation of privacy? If anyone has a thought.
Take a stab at that. I mean, there's only a couple of us that have the ability to run legal searches within our email. So there would have to be a FOIL request or a request from Maury or somebody of authority for us to go in and look for something.
Is that what you were asking? Like, who has access to see it? I know there's always this misconception that IT people are reading everybody's email in the restrooms.
No.
But,
I mean,
Let me know what they say.
yeah, great. Exactly. Lots of time on our hands.
I guess it's more like I don't have an expectation of privacy in the emails that I'm just sending, random emails. Like, those should be work-related and appropriate, although I have sworn on email, which I got in trouble for, but.
We saw that.
You were reading my emails when I swore, yeah. But it's more like, yeah, I guess who has access, or who, like, that is private, like when we get communication from them.
Yeah, like I said, there's only a couple of people that have the specific role to run those security and compliance role to then do those searches. So, so normally, I mean, we get FOIL requests 2 or 3 times a week. So, but what I tell people is, if you don't want it on the front page of the Journal, then.
Yeah.
But we're not actively looking. There has to be a specific reason, and there's a process in place that has to be followed. And it's certainly, it doesn't rise to the level of a staff member asking for data. It has to. So we do have some fail-safes, but.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? Corsa? No?
No, no.
You could swear at me in your email all you want.
I will. I'll do it. One more time. Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this. I think we moved it. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. No, we didn't?
I'll move it.
I don't think anybody moved it.
Seconds. All in favor?
I don't think we
That's
voted.
unanimous. Thank you. All right, another fun one. This is resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 07-12, responsible and ethical use of artificial intelligence, ID 13470. Greg moves, Rich seconds. And this is also a new policy.
This is a new one, correct?
Thank you
Yep.
for working on this. Do you want to speak to it at all, or?
Well, yeah, this is a new policy. This is a freight train that's left the station. Kim has been able to go to a few NISAN conferences, some other recent NISGLITA events, and we worked with other colleagues in other counties, NISAC, to develop this policy along with, I don't know, seems like a bunch of other people, but.
We also had input from other counties, and Corsa himself had sent some information, so we were able to take all of that and sort of compile it and put together the best semblance of a policy at this time, with the understanding that this is going to evolve. And I think the key thing to remember here is that a tech team's going to have to be developed to stay on top of this. This is one of those policies that's going to be constantly under review and is going to evolve as the technology continues to evolve.
Right. Questions, Rich?
I would note my students' grammar and spelling suddenly became much better this spring. I did have a question on page 24. I made a comment next to that list. You have AI, ML meeting tools. What, why? Question mark.
Are you talking about the exclusions?
Otter, Fireflies, Fathom, Rewatch, Assembly. What are they?
Okay, so.
And why are they bad?
Good questions. And I don't know that bad is the correct term here, but because there is such a high volume of these AI and ML these tools that help themselves into your meetings, we can give you a recent example. It actually was a meeting that somebody had let Fred Firefly into the meeting. And that is an AI tool that then takes the information, summarizes it, and then generates an email and sends it to everybody that's in the meeting. We then in turn get email saying, who is this person? How did they get in our meeting? How did Fred get here? What happened? So we had to come up with a list of some of the more common ones just to give people a baseline understanding of what that means. And as I said, I really don't want them to be classified as bad. It's just we can't support all of them. It's impossible. And we can't stay on top of the security holes with all these different products. So right now what we're supporting obviously is Teams, Zoom, and we have the companions that go along with that. And as part of this, the individual tools we're supporting are Copilot, which is part of our 365 atmosphere, or ChatGPT. And again, that could very well change and evolve, but at this point in time, we have to adopt something to keep our county moving forward, because as Lauren said, that train has definitely left the station. And if we're not focusing on AI and moving forward with it, we're going backwards really quickly. So we really have to give our department something, but also some very careful guidelines and guardrails, and say, we need to be cautious, but there are a lot of valuable uses for the tools.
I'll just add on to that. These 5 or 6 were typically where we see these is if you have a meeting with an outside person outside of Tompkins County or our agency, they may be using these tools to record the meeting. So you may not, in Zoom and Teams, you typically get that message, this is being recorded. When you let these AI agents in, if you will, they're taking and basically recording the meeting. So you may not realize that every word that you're saying is being recorded. So that's why we want to make sure people understand that and not just let these tools in meetings without knowing what they're doing.
So by definition, this county business is going somewhere. And somebody's getting all of that information, doing who knows what with it, and giving you some summary as payment.
Eventually, or not.
Or not,
Right.
but they're taking it all.
Correct.
So that we could have lots of confidential county information just gone.
Right.
Yeah, I'd apply the adjective bad. I'm
Well, I'd say
there.
not secure.
But
It's not secure.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
would say, what I mean by not bad is I don't want to say that Firefly is bad.
I will.
I shouldn't speak to that. I would say it's not conducive to county business.
Right.
Yeah.
About that. So for that, it might be a great product. I'm not here to speak of how great the product is. I just know that it's not conducive, and we're not at this point able to support the volume of these different agents that show up all of the time. They're going to continue to grow. So that's why we gave a list. It's not comprehensive, but just to give people a general idea of, it's like, oh, wait, I've heard of that. So it gives them an ability to sort of correlate to what's going on.
So, and I apologize for going on, but in this policy, should we be saying you do not want to use any AI that isn't supported, and provide some background on how to identify those? Because I would never know.
So we do offer that in there, and we do say that here's what we support, and beyond that, you shouldn't be using that. We do put some caveats, though, because AI is so new and evolving. There's going to be departments that have AI built into software, and they don't realize they're using it. So we certainly didn't want to write a policy that was putting people out of compliance immediately. You have to be really careful about that. People are using AI every day in every instance of their life. They just probably don't realize it. It's impossible to even do a Google search without AI giving you a return these days.
Yeah.
So the policy is only as good as the paper you write it on, right? And we always want to be very careful about not writing something that already puts people not in compliance. So while we're saying don't use anything, here's what we support, we did give a little bit of room saying, look, if you have questions, reach out to ITS, because we need to be able to support departments and help guide them.
Because there's gonna be some gray area. Let's say you're in a meeting with the hospital and Cornell and another agency, and you're just one of the players, but you're not hosting the meeting. They could be using any of these tools, and maybe they support them, or that's what they use. So it's, and you're participating as a participant, but you may not be running the meeting. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think that we address that where we say in using these tools to participate in county-originated meetings, right? So we don't want somebody to feel like they're, breaking a policy if they're in a meeting and somebody is using Firefly or Otter.
Yeah.
You might think about adding some more language to explain this in a little more detail, because I was like, what is this?
Sure, yeah, that's great feedback. And while I would love to stop this policy and revise it, I'm more concerned about moving it forward.
I would support passing it today, but it's, as you said, it's going to evolve.
Continually looked at, yeah.
The other thing I would encourage you to do is check out the ITS Atlas spoke. We have a whole section in there on AI. We have some videos that give some pretty good descriptions of what AI and machine learning are. The policy, once it's adopted, will be posted there. We have the guardrail email that I've sent out a couple of times that sort of give you the general, the guardrails, but we have articles and references to how critical this is, especially in county government, because we can quickly erode public trust if we're using the tools inappropriately.
Do you both look like you want to speak?
Yeah,
Maury.
I have sort of a question/suggestion, which is when we're in meetings with outside third parties who might be using this technology, and in those meetings would be exposing county confidential information, should we ask all the participants to turn those off? I mean, it's an honor system type of thing that they do that, but
I would defer that question to you very gently.
The answer is, that I was going to suggest, is we work something into the policy about that, and I'd be happy to work on it with you pending the next ledge meeting, so that we can have that edit in there in time for it to be voted on and be complete.
That would be fantastic.
So just to clarify, though, it would be just like if you were talking about sensitive topic or sensitive data.
Exactly.
Because I just think of, our health care and those meetings that they are talking about, maybe not clients' names, but yeah. So I think we'd have to be careful of that language, because it might be very restrictive, just knowing what's already going on in our in our infrastructure at the moment.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of like community partners that work with the health department that meet regularly on, and they use it for meeting notes, or, you know, maybe the Department of Health meetings. Yeah, we'd have to kind of certainly talk through that.
Did you have something, Corsa?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this is not to limit us. This is just to provide us the opportunity to explore what is out there and be innovative. If you go to, I believe, Oswego County, they use EVA, their DSS, to answer all their eligibility application and assessment, and that is significantly cutting down staff's time and efficiency in application processing. There are counties around us that are applying these tools to enhance citizen engagement, and there are opportunities out there. So this is not a limiter, but this to provide us the resources to be able to go out there, see how we can improve in our service and engagement with citizens.
I was going to ask, I don't know how difficult it would be, but I just wonder about having like a training module with county yearly training.
So that's built into the policy. Okay. And the guideline is right now that the policy or the training modules must be developed within a month or a year of this policy. We gave ourselves 12 months just because there's a few little moves and data center things that need to be moved that we just want to get through those first.
Great.
But, so we gave ourselves 12 months, which probably is not what we would require, but and it also is, some of that is out of our purview, some of that would fall into compliance. But we do have some training videos already out on the Atlas, sort of just giving some general overviews. And you know, some are cautionary tales, but I would second what Corsa was saying. When I was recently in Albany with NISAC, the EVA model is one that's been such a successful model in the social services world that I think that it's one of the things that people should be looking into and listening to and hearing the successes and maybe appreciating the achievements of it versus what's going to happen. Is this going to take away my job? Is, you know, where are we going to go with this? Right. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions and unknowns, and as you said, it's rapidly evolving. So we have to move on. Greg?
Public meetings shouldn't be an issue if somebody were to use a note-taking.
We're already recording those on YouTube, and they're out there already.
So I'm just going to pick on Bridget for a second. So if Bridget's sitting here in a public meeting and has some sort of note-taking system that helps her take up the information more effectively, that's an okay use in this policy, as long as if we were to go into an executive session, that would be turned off?
Correct, because there's devices now that you can wear.
Like Plaid or Plaid or what, yeah.
Yep, Plaid.
You put it on the back of your phone or record your phone calls.
Nobody knows that you've got that on. And then, boom, they come back in 20 minutes with all the meeting notes, and you're like, how did you do that?
That's not good.
I would say to Bridget, way to go. Working smarter, not harder. You know, I mean.
So in a public meeting, right, it's totally fine to. Right.
Yeah, public does make it impossible for us to have any guidelines or guardrails. It's out of our control, for lack of a better term.
Because they could also just play the YouTube and run this tool against the YouTube.
Right.
And that's
do the
already
same
being
thing.
recorded, right.
And so do you also foresee us having additional enterprise solutions that we'll be adding as time comes on to assist with this?
Yes.
We're already piloting some. Okay. We've got some department heads and some people already piloting them, yes.
Okay, Mike, and then we need to vote and move along.
Well, I wanted to say I like the use of the word ethics here. And what is ethical use? Because I think that's something that's going to be very hard to sort out. It's going to get harder in the future. I think of things now that, I don't know, maybe they're AI, but some of these things may require legislative decision and policy making rather than just the level of department heads, for example. We've had in Rich's committee a discussion about the license plate readers, for example. And I worry about facial recognition. And I don't know if we have that anywhere in the county, but it could come up. And I think it's important that these kind of things be moved up to the legislature for comment and possibly decision on something like that. I really worry about it, because people worry about their privacy. At least they always used to. And though they put everything on social media now, I suppose, but it's important that they have the ability to have a certain level of privacy when they go outdoors.
Yep, great, thank you. Rich?
Just in proposing new language for revision of this policy, just a general meeting etiquette process of asking at the beginning of meetings, I think would be really useful to say, is there any AI being used?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, great. Good discussion. It's really great that you guys have worked on this.
So quickly.
So quickly. I know, we just talked about it a couple months ago. So, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, one more policy is the resolution to update Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 07-01, acceptable use of county information technology resources, ID 13471. And Rich moves that, Greg seconds that. And this is not a new policy.
Correct.
But it is an update.
It is an update, and what we ended up doing was revising this and then pulling some of the pieces out into separate policies, because previously we only had the one policy, and obviously we can't function in today's day with just that one policy covering everything.
All right, questions or comments?
So what are the substantive changes here, or is it just sort of reordering into the other two policies?
It's pulling data. So for example, data retention is no longer really addressed in here. Obviously AI didn't exist before. The other policies that we've already, the passwords, mobile devices, remote access, the policies that you guys have previously passed, instead of sort of being covered in a generic statement in one large policy, we broke them out into individual policies because they needed more care and feeding, and they are now individual policies, but you still have to have an overarching acceptable use. You have to have that, that umbrella that sort of protects the county and our teams.
Greg?
I didn't know LimeWire and Napster and Kazaa were still things. I guess I can afford to pay for music now, so this seems like a blast from my childhood. But yeah, this seems like it's a good, clean, clear update to the policy.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mike, you look puzzled.
I was just thinking about some conversations we used to have a few years ago about county employees' use of their computers. And I know we were running out of, I think, bandwidth, because they would turn these computers on at the beginning of the day, and they would bring up some kind of news programs or something, and leave it on all day long. And I remember Greg Potter coming back to us and saying, we've got to have more bandwidth, because, and I would say, well, why don't you tell them to turn it off?
Yeah,
are we running into any kind of issues like that?
Well, at the moment, no, we're pretty good at the moment. So we have upgraded our bandwidth over the years. There are business cases for things like YouTube and training over the internet and all sorts of content management learning systems that some of our departments use on a daily basis. So it does specifically address streaming media that is not associated with your job function. That's not allowed in this policy.
Good.
But yeah, to come in and start your Netflix movie while you're watching,
Not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Well, it was costing us money for the amount of
Greg? turn off your Netflix, please.
I use my hotspot, so I'm good.
The amount of data, you know, or the amount of uses of that we had to have, the number of lines, as I could recall, we had to have those key lines or something they were.
We have redundant internet connections for redundancy in case one goes down, that we can still continue to function. And we have upgraded the bandwidth through the years, just naturally as applications get more feature-rich.
And the technology's evolved too. What Greg was referring to is, you know, you used to stream something and whoever was first in would basically take up all that space in the pipe, only leaving a little bit for the rest of the people. Streaming is, the technology itself is much different. It's a much thinner client these days. I'm not saying it's not a bandwidth hog, but generally speaking, it's pretty much everywhere.
We have things like bandwidth optimizers and load balancing and a lot of technology that helps that be a little bit more streamlined than it was 10 years ago.
We should have a GO meeting only with you two, and you could just explain all the technology to us for hours.
We did it not that long ago. We can do it again.
Yeah, hours and hours, and because we don't get it. All right, let's go ahead and vote on this. Acceptable use, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you both for being here and for wearing blue. And it's good to see you.
Thank you, guys. I think that's the last of the IT policies for a while, so we do appreciate your time. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate you.
One department down. How many more to go here?
Okay. Charlene, come on up. We didn't have a chance to talk last month about the legislature having our own equity indicators. So Charlene is here today, and the memo that she wrote is in your packet, page 39. And this is a discussion. You're going to guide us. And I think, just as I've said, I think a couple times, you know, we've asked our departments to come up with equity indicators for the next year and things that they're going to look at and collect data. So we understand this, and it seems like the legislature should have something that we're looking at as well. So I don't know if you want to say anything to sort of start us off?
Yeah, sure. Each department that chose to engage in open office hours went through this process. So this is very normal in our cadence around the equity indicator, where we sit down, we talk about what works, what could work, what doesn't, any questions that you might have. So feel free to let this be as free-flowing as possible so we can actually move the conversation to an actual commitment. I also made sure that in the memo, I did not overlap with the legislative clerk's equity indicators, because sometimes they could look similar because they're here to support you. But these recommendations are specifically for you as a lawmaker. I wanted to kind of pull from how you create laws, pass policies, and allocate budgetary resources as your primary focus for a potential equity indicator.
Right, and again, this is something that we're not talking about doing all of these. It's talking about, choosing one that we could sort of track, with help track, and that could go forward into next year as needed. So I don't know if anybody wants to jump in or have thoughts to start. Greg?
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. I think as we move forward in this conversation, definitions are important, and getting on the same page. I'll use the first one, equity and discretionary funding. What does under-resourced mean? How as an organization are we able to quickly identify what that is and track that? Is it minority-led, or is it a minority-driven focus in the organization? So I think that there's some key opportunities there. I'd also like to think and consider application versus granting versus just granting, right? Because maybe we only had one apply, but that one wasn't sufficient for whatever XY reason. That, I think that there's some stages to this data that would be important for us, but I also think that the metric definition needs to be clear so that there's no argument over what that means or how we calculated that, right? We talk about living wage all the time, and it's like, well, what formula did we use? Or like, is that formula legitimate? So as we move forward with defining what we'd like, I'd like to make sure that we're specific and that there can't be any debate over the specificity of a metric. So I thought that was an interesting one. Community representation and policies in terms of public engagement. Again, some of the questions I have is how do we track? Who tracks, right? Who around the table is responsible for this? And how do we capture some of that? Affordable housing legislation, I think if we looked at the Community Housing Development Fund, right, that would be a very easy way to sort of track our impact there. And yeah, I guess for me, it really comes down to what are we really tracking? Some of these, it's a great start of the conversation to your point, but we need to really drill in and say, what are we really trying to do with this?
Yeah. Is there one of these 6 examples that stands out to you as something that you would be most interested in tracking, in defining better and explaining, but
if I had to pick a few, just to sort of
one.
I can't pick one. I'm a legislator. We're going to go on for as long as I have the mic. I'd say number 1, I'm a housing focused person, so 4. I think some low hanging fruit would be 6 because it's a timely topic that's about to probably rear its head at some point in some committee. So those would kind of be my areas of focus, but I'm open to any and all of these based on my colleagues' feedback.
Okay, great, thanks. Rich or Mike? Rich.
Yeah, I guess I'd worry about 4 and 6 in that you really couldn't compare over time, in that the housing projects are going to be intermittent or sporadic. I don't know that we'd really see any trend from that, but I understand why it's there. And similarly, we're going to make some decisions, it sounds like, about language access, but we do it and then it's different and we live with the new system. One thing I was thinking about was equity indicators for us as legislators, not necessarily for the county. A lot of these seem to be, what's the county doing? And as I understood it when you raised this issue, Amanda, it was the legislature and us as legislators. And the thought that occurred to me was tracking public comment and public input. Who's coming and talking with us? Is that trending up? Is it trending down? And I see the clerks cringing behind me. I can see them right now, even though I'm not looking that way. But when somebody comes to speak, they say where they're from. And I don't know that we could track, racial identity, but we could at least determine gender, perhaps in a lot of cases, and location. And that would be interesting to see year to year. Are we engaging more people? Are we engaging people through public comment? Are they coming to the meetings? Are we getting more written comment? Yeah, anyway, that was.
Okay. Just thought about number 6. It could be anything that we're passing. It could be policies, it could be budget things, it could, it doesn't have to just be this one program that we're doing. It could, any topic could be kind of over time, like what are we doing for that,
Sure.
item.
I guess my point is if we fund it and then we fund it next year, the same amount.
But there might be other things in between that we,
Yeah.
administration comes and we have an update on the policy for,
Right,
translation services.
There might be, but there might not be.
Right.
And if there isn't, then what do
there
you compare
isn't.
against?
Yeah.
I think number 5 is actually one that is.
I was thinking that.
Could be a little cut and dry in terms of historical tracking. To Rich's point, I don't necessarily know if some of these need to be historically tracked, but it could be, is it a focus area for us in this year? If it's achieved, check, we've achieved our goal, we've met the indicator, and we come up with a new indicator. I'm very reluctant and adamantly opposed to make determinations on someone's identity based on visual representation of who.
No, I agree with you.
Someone may be.
It would be very hard.
So I just really want to caution us if we're going to try to track demographic data.
May I just share something to ease the stress?
Yeah.
It would be as simple as us updating the card that people fill out to this.
Self-identify.
Yes, and
blue
there could be
card.
an optional portion where we ask we can be right in line with EEOC's demographic information, and you can option to fill it out or you don't. And for those who do fill it out, we can track it over time. And for those who don't, we just, that'll be a part of our, disparity. So that's a really easy approach, and that's something that could be done fairly quickly, and it would be in line with what we already have access to and currently operating in at the county. And it would also provide a level of support for our whole health department, Department of Social Services. They're also tracking our sheriff's office. They're also tracking demographic data as well. And so to have this intersection, that would be great. That would be a great option. The second thing that I'd like to share is that for number 4, you do have some support if you were to choose that. Planning and sustainability, their equity indicator would intersect with yours, so you would work closely with them. They're doing cost burden for renters versus homeowners, and so they have this slew of data that you might be able to access along with their research and lens that could provide you a little more context to how you might want to track those affordable units that are created by any laws that you might pass. So there is like so many different angles that you can choose. And it's just a matter of okay, this is the direction we'd like to go in.
So I will say that right before I came on the legislature 8 years ago, there was a huge debate about those blue cards. And it would be so fun in my last months of being on the legislature to have another huge debate about those blue cards.
Let's do it. We've got nothing else going on, Amanda.
We could invite Nathan Shinagawa back. He had quite a time with that.
No, but I do think that is a pretty straightforward one that could work. And if people don't want to, it's optional. They don't have to fill it out. Katrina, what are your thoughts on that?
I just wanted to remind everybody, our blue cards, like their name, their residence, the county of residence, all that information is optional. All we ask is that they agree to the rules.
Right.
They give us a name. It doesn't have to be theirs.
Exactly.
And they don't have to give a last name. They can.
You could also create a legislative initiative to boost your community participation. And every time someone comes in, there's a QR code, and the QR code takes them to a survey.
Yeah.
And the survey asks them some questions. What's your satisfaction with the legislature? Why do you come? What kind of comments do you want to make? It could be those types of questions where you're getting some feedback from the community to get them engaged, civic engagement is important to Tompkins County. And then there'd be an additional portion of that asks some optional demographic information. That could be all digital, which would make it fairly or less cumbersome for the
How long do we have to keep that data, though?
Having to put in manual data from a card.
7 years.
And then we would be able to, all of us could have access to that, and we could track that over time and have an Excel spreadsheet, things of that nature. So there are ways to approach it to make it make less work for your clerks.
Yeah. Rich.
Yeah, I was going to say, having been named in a federal lawsuit over the blue cards, I'm all in. I think we should do this. If we, and I love the idea, like the DMV, just a simple thing,
Could we get one of those button machines? And people could just hit green or red?
I would like one of the questions to be, how stupid do the legislators appear this evening?
Yes.
You know, and you,
Well, we wouldn't be able to do that one, but we could ask how satisfied they are with the legislative conversation, or did they feel heard? Did they have enough time? Things of that nature. And folks will give their opinion on those types of questions. And then they're more likely, because you ask them how they felt, they're more likely to give you some information about who they are.
Yeah.
I
So
think
that might land nicely.
I would be very excited to see us try to develop something
that.
along those lines.
Let's go to Mike.
Well, I agree with a lot of the comments. One, I agree with Rich when I looked at these, I said, well, is that really the legislature's indicator, or is it the county's indicator? Mm-hmm. But looking at here, and I agree very much that housing is something we should be looking at. I personally think we are failing the middle class in Tompkins County, where they can't buy houses, which normally happens, and when people move up to the middle class, they want to be able to buy a house. And I think it's because we don't have available water and sewer in a lot of areas. And those kinds of things could be looked at. And I'm very interested in the comment you had, Charlene, about the planning intersecting with that. I think that's something that we could look at.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Greg?
One last, I guess this would be for Corsa and Bridget, is could you encourage department heads when they come to the program committees to be using their equity indicators as part of their update, part of their conversation, so that, you know, those type of things don't just sort of fall flat on a tracking system, but that the legislature can be made aware of what those indicators are, and try to, you know, encourage them to, you know, maybe it's twice a year in their, you know, semi-annual update that they say, hey, here's what we're working on, and here's how it relates to our equity indicators, and here's what we've seen so far. I think that would be helpful, and maybe that's a thing that we track at the legislature, is how many times at the committee level or at the legislative level we're having a conversation around an equity indicator, because that is something that we can control, and that is a metric that we can measure.
I'd like to say this with love. When we originally agreed and adopted the equity indicator initiative, it is the legislators, the chair of the committee was asked directly to make sure that you ask about the equity indicators, because this was built into each department head's work plan. So encouraging them is great, but we also want to encourage the legislature to be mindful of the questions you ask, the updates you get, why you get them. And so I would, with love, because I love you, Greg, I would advise not to use that as a metric, because that's something that is already built into the infrastructure. So you kind of want to antagonize some things that you don't have readily access to. Sure. So I would move away from that piece.
But if the onus is on the chair of the committee, I mean, that, you know, how often is the chair of the committee bringing that topic up or reaching out to the...
That would be according to the slate of equity indicators that we have from department heads. That would be very surface level for the legislature. And so optics, with love, that looks like we're doing like the easiest thing, but we have to do a lot. Not that you care. I'm just sharing and being an advocate on behalf of our department heads. Some of them really went deep, and they're really gathering data, and they really want to see how their service provision can be improved. And so when we think about the legislature, how do we improve the legislature through this same infrastructure? Not saying you're not doing a great job, but how could this data inform better practices is what I would say. Calculating how many folks are reporting on their equity indicators, is that actually going to help, yes or no? What would be my question to you? If you'd like to go in that direction, I will support you. But I'd rather say, it would be nice to get some feedback from the community, or it would be great for you to look at how you allocate your resources, or it would be awesome for you to see how many affordable units you have in the area.
Right.
Like that, those give you like that meat and potatoes that we're looking for in the initiative.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay.
Or plant-based protein.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
right.
yes. Or,
Tofu.
excuse me, a plant-based protein
Yes.
for my vegan folks.
Tofu
I'm sorry.
and potatoes.
Yes, tofu.
Okay, so sounds like there was some positive feedback about the idea either of changing the blue card for additional optional information that the public could fill out. And I mean, I'm assuming that a number of people would. There would be people who wouldn't. And or, which I think would be more work, coming up with a survey that people could scan when they come in and decide if they want to give feedback on what the legislature is doing or whatever those specific questions are. Do those feel like a good direction?
I feel like given that you're going to increase your slate of legislators to 16,
Yeah.
and then there's going to need to be some camaraderie built and, you know, formal and informal discussion, that will be a nice place to begin the conversation about what do we do with this new legislature. Here's some feedback, you know, through our initiative that we've gotten from our community members. How do we uplift our constituents in this space? Could be a great talking point for the new legislature. I would say you all would have to be forward thinking because some of you won't be here next year.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of working on that. I don't know the other, or anybody else want to chime in? Greg says thumbs up.
I'm confused when you say that.
The blue card change or a survey for constituents who come for any meeting, not just legislature meetings. I think it could be any public meeting.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. Is that acceptable to you, Mike?
Sure.
Okay, great. Katrina and Charlene, can I help this process? Or we could talk after about how to kind of actually move this forward. I would be happy to get other input from other legislators, but I feel like that might be opening it up to a lot more debate. Katrina?
If you update the blue card, that will be
a vote,
a debate, and that will be required.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think it does make sense to do something so there's a concrete proposal for legislators to react to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just hesitant to like put out to everybody, what are your choices?
No.
And like if we're narrowing down on this as a topic.
Yes, Katrina and I and you, we can sit down and talk about, each department head filled out our framework for collecting equity indicator data. And so we'll fill that out with all the fields, and we can even create a pseudo survey questionnaire that folks can, just something tangible you guys could take to your colleagues, and then they can respond to that instead of responding to this discussion.
Okay. Okay. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Everybody okay with the direction? Did we do okay?
You guys did excellent.
All right, while you're here, do you have other updates or anything else you want to talk to us about?
Well, I know it's 4:02, so I will send these via email.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, it's 4:02 already. Okay, so we'll go through reports quickly. I just want to note that at the September meeting, I will not be here. I believe this will be my only GO meeting I've ever missed, so I'm very sad about that. Mike Lane will chair that meeting, and if any of the three of you can't show up, you won't be able to meet. So,
What's the date?
Chair appoints somebody.
Unless the chair appoints somebody.
Like the 4th?
The 4th, maybe, September?
I will be here.
Okay, great. County Administrator, do you have any updates?
Wear red.
So it is already past 4 p.m. Very, very quick one. We received 3 bids for the minimum wage study. So I believe an email was sent or will be sent out to get members who are interested in being on the review panel. I had a conversation today with the EMS CGR. They will be submitting a written status update to Public Safety Committee this month, and also they will present to Public Safety Committee in September of status update.
So they're going to just do an oral report
They'll do an
in
oral
August and
report
then the
in
written
August.
report in September?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, because I was going to call them.
Okay, yeah, great. Also, the city also approved the MOU for Co-Blue and Navigation Hub. We are asking for a quick meeting to decide and coordinate next steps so that we'll be able to provide you an update as we move forward with that process as well. We don't have a lot of time, so we are really being on top of it to make sure we do what we need to do. Center of Government relocation update. We all know where we are. I sent a memo out earlier on late last night. Our resolution will be submitted to Katrina to be included in the 18th agenda or 19th agenda, and I also sent a memo from the department to go with the resolution that will be emailed to you as well for your review and updates, so you have ample time to discuss it and make an informed decision come the 19th. And that's my update. Everything else is going well. Very quiet.
Oh, yeah, you got nothing else to work on.
Yeah, nothing unless not.
Thank you. Any questions for Corsa at the moment? All right, County Attorney. Maury.
Hi, I don't have much to add to what Corsa just said. And from County Administration's review, we've been spending a lot of time, in addition to our usual work, supporting the effort to develop the combined shelter and navigation hub, and obviously, the resolutions are what they are, but there's still lots of work to do to get to the point where ground can be broken, so to speak. I also wanted to say what a pleasure it is to work with the departments on policies, and with Bridget and Charlene on the DEI policy. It's great to be included in that and to have input in that. At the same time, it's important to encourage departments when they are encountering a legal issue or have a legal opinion to express, to run it by the county attorney's office. And as legislators, I really encourage you, if you receive an opinion on a legal subject from a non-lawyer, whether that comes on a Sunday or a Wednesday, to reach out and ask me questions about that. And that is my report, unless anybody has any particular questions, which I'm happy to answer here or at any time.
Don't you have a slogan, when in doubt, reach out, or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's, consult before you act, something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Any questions for Maury? All right, well, thank you for being here. Director of Finance, Daryl Tuttle.
Hello. I don't have anything new to report. Everything's going well as I'm still settling into my new role, but I would love to, or I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Great. Any questions for Daryl? All right. Thank you also for being here. Communications Director, Monica.
Never a good position to be in, to be between you and adjournment. So
We'll put you at the top of the reports next month.
That's all right. I think most of the things that have been going on, you're well aware. We've had 8 media releases over the last 4 weeks on a number of issues. We've live streamed and broadcast 11 public meetings. We've communicated our department move for administration and HR through all our channels, so people are aware. You're also aware of the Center of Government Communications and Engagement efforts, that there is a new survey that we want people to fill out and weigh in on the design options of the Center of Government, and all that information and presentations and slides can be found on the project webpage, tcgov.co/COG. I wanted to highlight some, now that we have our ticketing system that we use with departments to request information or support from us. We had 70 requests from departments in July. And those are the ones who went through the system. Not all of them always go through the system yet, but we're working on that, and we have 8 of those that are still in process, but everything else has been completed. We also support departments last month with drone flying and photography for most recently highway culvert construction. So those pictures are really awesome to look at. So once they're available in our public gallery, I'll send out a link. Also, the County Office for Aging, the 50th anniversary celebration, and the naturalization ceremony. So they are all documented and on our public library, in addition to a number of headshots for department staff and videos for NHR recruiting video. A new thing that I started last month in terms of internal communication is I started an employee spotlight on starting with 2 people who were retiring, our highway director and our DSS commissioners. And that just so happened that they were retiring, but the idea is really to highlight staff that has been long serving in the county in different roles. It doesn't have to be a department head. They don't have to be retiring. So my goal is to do a highlight like that once a month on different roles, and then put it on the intranet so people can see what other departments are doing, what those roles are. And the feedback has been really great, not only for the people who were featured on that spotlight, who were very touched and very willing to participate, but also from other staff who had access to that and reviewed that. And we also had a staff town hall meeting that we have once a month, and this time we had very much increased attendance and also participation. So it's not just administration talking to staff or at staff about updates, but we are making an effort to involve departments to give updates to each other and have different people speaking and really make this a collaborative effort and not just admin to staff. And lastly, our Public Information Advisory Board has 2 new members, so all the seats are filled now. We also elected a vice chair and a secretary at the last meeting, and I also added a web page for that advisory board under the communications webpage. So the information is there, who are the people who are serving, the board members, and also minutes are going to be published there. So that's it in a nutshell.
Great, that's great about the PIAB. It's sort of always operated without a page and nobody quite knows, so thank you for herding them. Herding. Questions for Monica?
I just want to add on the center of government side, the county historian met the architect yesterday. They were very excited that she came, sat down with them, go through their plans, pick her brains on some of the design concept and the ideas, and they are really excited about the content that she gave, and they're looking to factor that into their plan that will be presented to you guys.
And you sent us an email with the survey that legislators are supposed to fill out to give feedback on the concept, right?
The design, and that would be great if you could fill that out by the end of day tomorrow.
Okay.
So Holt has an opportunity to analyze those, compile and analyze those results, and then there will be a process of how this will be communicated back to you.
Great. So if you haven't done that yet, I haven't done that yet, if you want to have input, do it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any committee members have anything you want to bring up at the moment? Thank you all. Appreciate you all. Very good meeting. Thank you, and we are adjourned.